Have you ever been dumped and thought, why does this hurt so much? Why does my chest literally ache? You're not being dramatic, you're not weak, and no, it's not just in your head. Breakups can physically hurt because your brain actually processes emotional pain almost identically to physical injury. In fact, in brain scans, the same regions light up when someone experiences heartbreak as when they get burned or punched. Let that sink in. The moment your person walks away, your brain reacts as if you've been wounded. That tight feeling in your chest, the heaviness in your stomach, the fog in your head, all real, all biological. You're not crazy, you're in withdrawal. Here's what's wild. Researchers at Columbia University conducted an fMRI study where people looked at photos of their ex while recalling the rejection. Their brains showed activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and insula, the exact same areas that activate when you experience physical pain. These are the neural alarm systems of your body screaming, "Something's wrong." Might sneeze. Why does the brain do this? Evolution. Humans are wired to bond, and losing a strong emotional connection once vital to survival, like with a tribe, family, or partner, triggered real distress. Rejection wasn't just sad, it was dangerous. So our brains evolved to react with alarm bells and physical symptoms to motivate us to reconnect or adapt. So if you're sitting there feeling broken, understand this: you're not overreacting. You're experiencing a deeply human, biologically programmed response. Your brain thinks you've been wounded, and in a way, you have. But here's the good news. Just like physical injuries, emotional pain can heal too. And in the next part, we'll break down exactly how your brain gets hooked on love and why losing it feels like withdrawal from a drug. Part 2. The addiction connection. If love is a drug, then a breakup is full-on withdrawal. And that's not just a metaphor. Your brain literally reacts to romantic loss the same way it reacts when you quit an addictive substance. The highs, the crashes, the cravings, the irrational urges to just reach out one more time, they all have a neurological explanation. When you're in love, your brain releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. These create that euphoric, floating-on-air feeling when you're around the person you care about. Your brain starts to associate that person with pleasure and comfort, reinforcing the connection like a reward loop. Over time, your partner becomes your personal source of emotional regulation, your go-to fix for joy, calm, and validation. But when the relationship ends, that supply is suddenly cut off. Your brain goes into panic mode. It doesn't understand why its primary source of reward has disappeared, so it reacts like it's starving, sending you into a spiral of obsessive thoughts, intense cravings, and irrational behaviors. It's the same process a person goes through during substance withdrawal. In fact, studies using brain scans found that people experiencing a breakup show activity in the same brain centers, like the ventral tegmental area, that light up when drug addicts crave their substance of choice. That's why you might find yourself stalking their social media, rereading old texts, or fantasizing about getting back together, even when you know it's over. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's just desperately trying to restore its dopamine hit. Understanding this helps you take back control. You're not weak, you're chemically hooked. But unlike drugs, love addiction doesn't require rehab. What it does require is awareness, space, and time. The more distance you create, the less power the cravings have. In Part 3, we'll explore what happens to your identity during a breakup and why losing someone can feel like losing yourself. Part 3. Losing them feels like losing yourself. It's not just the person you're mourning, it's you. After a breakup, people often say, "I don't even know who I am without them." And as dramatic as that might sound, there's real science behind it. Love doesn't just change how we feel, it actually changes who we are. Psychologists call this the self-expansion theory. When we fall in love, we begin to merge identities with our partner. Their interests, routines, social circles, even their vocabulary. These slowly blend with ours. Over time, we stop thinking in terms of you and me, and start operating as a we. That's why breakups feel like an identity crisis. When the relationship ends, you're not just dealing with absence. You're experiencing a kind of death of self. The parts of you that were shaped by us now feel hollow. Even simple things, like your favorite song, your weekend rituals, or your go-to dinner order, can suddenly feel unfamiliar or painful. In one study, participants who had recently gone through a breakup experienced not just sadness, but a measurable loss of self-concept clarity. That means their sense of identity became foggy, scattered, and unstable. It's like standing in a mental mirror and not quite recognizing the reflection anymore. This is also why the grief feels so confusing. You're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the version of yourself that existed with them. And without that anchor, you feel lost. But there's a hidden opportunity here. Once the bond breaks, you get to rebuild. Not as a fragment of a former we, but as a whole, fully realized you. And that's not just healing, it's transformation. In the next part, we'll dive into why your mind keeps romanticizing the relationship and how memory can become your biggest enemy after heartbreak. Part 4. Your brain is lying to you. After a breakup, it's like your brain becomes your worst hype man. But for the wrong person. You find yourself suddenly flooded with sweet memories. Your first kiss, that perfect vacation, how they used to look at you like you were the only person in the world. It's like a highlight reel you can't turn off. But here's the psychological twist. A lot of that nostalgia is distorted. When we go through emotional loss, the brain has a tendency to idealize the past. It's called rosy retrospection, a cognitive bias that causes us to remember events as being better than they actually were. During distress, your brain rewrites the story to give you comfort and clarity, even if that story is inaccurate. That's why red flags start looking like misunderstandings, and toxic patterns suddenly seem like rough patches. Another sneaky trick: emotional memory tagging. Your brain ties feelings to specific memories. So if you once felt safe, loved, or alive with your ex, remembering them reactivates those emotions, even if the reality wasn't always so great. It's like emotional déjà vu. The feeling comes back stronger than the facts. And of course, there's the selective editing we all do subconsciously. Our minds filter out pain to protect us. You don't remember the silence after arguments. You remember the laughter after movies. You don't recall how often you cried. You recall how hard you held on. This mental trickery makes it so much harder to move on. It keeps you emotionally tethered to a relationship that may have already run its course. But here's the truth. If it was really as perfect as your brain now claims, you wouldn't have had to let it go. In Part 5, we'll finally talk about healing and how to retrain your brain to let go and move forward for real. Part 5. Healing: How to Rewire Your Brain After Heartbreak. Here's the truth no one tells you. Healing from a breakup isn't just emotional, it's neurological. And that's actually good news, because just like your brain was wired to fall in love, it can be rewired to move on. Let's start with neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new pathways. After a breakup, those old love pathways, the ones tied to your ex, are still firing. That's why you keep thinking about them, dreaming about them, even craving contact. But each time you don't reach out, each time you focus on something else, you weaken that circuit. And every new experience, new person, or new thought you engage in, that's helping you build a new map. One of the most effective tools? Disruption and novelty. New places, new routines, new challenges. These shake up the brain's autopilot and help overwrite the patterns tied to your ex. That's why things like traveling, taking up a hobby, or even just rearranging your room can actually speed up emotional recovery. Next, emotional regulation. Journaling, meditating, talking to a friend, or seeing a therapist activates your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, which helps calm the emotional storm created by your limbic system. In other words, the more you process your feelings out loud or on paper, the faster your brain finds stability. And finally, compassion. For yourself. Breakups feel like failure, but they're often the beginning of growth. Letting go doesn't mean you lost. It means you're ready to evolve. Your brain doesn't forget love, but it can reframe it. And over time, what once felt like a wound will become a lesson, maybe even a blessing. So if you're still hurting, just remember, your brain is healing, your identity is reforming, and one day, this pain will be just a memory, one that no longer hurts.